show you guys. Even the best bakers have problems. These just fell out of the shelf. Like, what a waste. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is why we don't rush around the kitchen pulling things out. Alright everybody, hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Caitlin and I run the blog called Mrs. Midwest. If you're familiar with my channel, you know that we have not yet visited my kitchen, but today I have something very exciting in store. I'm going to show you all how I make my Amish bread recipe. Okay, this is also going to be more of a casual video, so is this a bread vlog? Perhaps? We don't know. We're just rolling with it, and I kind of trust if you're watching this video, you're already kind of like part of the sisterhood, so you're here for it. We're going to be doing this together. So let's dive in. Hi, you want to come say hi? Okay, so we're going to start with flour. I just bought this from Walmart and it's specifically a bread flour. I like unbleached flour because who wants to consume bleach? Like, that just sounds really gross to me. And bread flour is higher in protein. So it makes more gluten, it absorbs more water, and it makes it more elastic and even chewy. I like bread flour because it does give that chewier, kind of dense taste to your bread. So enriched bread flour, it doesn't have to be this brand, but this is what Walmart had, so we're going with it. The next piece to bread making is yeast. Bread needs yeast in order to rise, and to activate the yeast by putting it in water, and we're gonna go through all of that when we're actually making the bread. Next, you can do this with vegetable oil or olive oil. I got this from Walmart. It's great value brand, nothing special. Next, I'm going to be using Himalayan pink salt in the loaf, not because that's what you need to do, but just because that's all I have in my house. Finally, I'm going to be sweetening this Amish bread recipe with some raw honey. This is made in the United States, even though it's Walmart brand, but I would really recommend getting a local honey, especially if you live in the Midwest like me. There's so many local honey brands. All right, so we're on my website because, of course, we should. This is my channel. This is the recipe we're going to be doing. Very, very simple. I'm going to be following all of these steps so you can see how it turns out. Recommended amount is 1 1/4 cups of water. And then add the recommended yeast as well. The yeast is just really on the surface of the water. Don't stir it right now, okay? Just leave it resting on the top, and as it activates, it will soak into the water, and some of those ones resting on the very top will sink down. So you can also get yeast in these packets. This is just from Walmart again. Each one is 2 1/4 teaspoons, which is the usual yeast recommendation. So basically it's 1 pack per loaf of bread. Right now we're allowing the combination to rest and foam for about 5 minutes. And this is really important to let the yeast activate. If you don't do this, you're not going to see a good rise in your bread because the yeast is, as we said before, what makes the bread rise. While the yeast is activating, I'm going to add the flour, the salt, and the oil into the bowl. I like to whisk this salt and the flour together before I add the yeast and the water, because then it really just makes sure the flour and the salt are distributed well. I'm making a mess, first of all, yay, that's good baking. But this yeast is chunky. It is floated to the bottom, it's dissolved, it's catching onto the honey, it's ready to go. Okay, so we made our little hole, and now we're going to put the water and yeast in it. If a lot gets stuck to the bottom, you can just add more honey. Like, this is nothing crazy. I am not a professional of this mixture situation. So I'm going to show you how I like to combine the yeast and the flour before we get to the fun part, which is kneading the bread. You can see we're starting to get some texture. It's starting to get stringy, and that's what yeast does. It looks so stringy and stretchy and elastic. That is what makes yeast and gluten so special. This stretch is great. That's what yeast does to bread, and that's what makes bread dough different from a cookie dough. You know, you don't see this kind of interesting chemical reaction happen when you're just doing cookie dough. So it's very, very cool. So it's forming. We can see that. Yay. So I think it's time to take it out of the bowl and onto the counter, which was disinfected with vinegar before we started. Make sure that you don't have bacteria or weird chemicals. Like if you use an all-purpose bleach cleaner, don't knead bread on the counter. I like vinegar because it kills bacteria and it's natural. Kind of like a big mess, and there's liquidy parts to it and there's a lot of dry parts. So I'm going to just kind of combine this. So I like to do bread in a way that you're pulling apart the dough like that, and then you gather it back to you. You can also do this motion and then pull this back and then go forward, pull that back. It's really whatever feels most comfortable to you, and whatever's going to really work that yeast properly. So you can do this for about 15 minutes, and I like to turn on a YouTube video while I do this, but for the sake of this video, I'm gonna really focus. This is my favorite part of making bread because it's so cute and it's like Play-Doh and I love it. But now we have to put this in an oiled bowl with a damp cloth over top. The dampness of the cloth is going to help this baby rise. But right now you can see it's good and fluffy. So I'm just gonna put a drop of this in there. That's probably too much, but whatever. And then I'm going to stick the baby in. Very nice. And I'm gonna do some circles. Get it oiled on all sides. A damp towel. Make sure it's not sopping wet. And I like this glass bowl situation because we can check on the baby while we wait for it to rise for an hour. You can also use saran wrap, but I like doing a damp cloth because I don't like buying saran wrap because I don't like contributing to the plastic problem in the world. So the damp cloth it is. Hello, little ball of bread. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to go do some other things for an hour while that rises, and then we are going to check back in. Hello, it's been 1 hour, so we're going to check on the bread and I'm going to show you how it's risen. Isn't this so gorgeous, guys? I'm really excited. But you can see the steam that has gathered, which is really cool. And there is a lot of air in here. So now we have to punch down the dough and knead it again for a few minutes before we shape it into a loaf, or you can put it in a bread. I'm going to be putting the bread in a loaf pan. You can also shape the bread and just put it on like a bread stone, but I got this for my birthday from my aunt, and so I want to use it for this loaf of bread. Yeah, you just kind of have to put some oil in it and then spread it around on all the sides. This will help it be easier to get the bread out when you're done. And this is also why I like wearing an apron, because I always like wipe right here, and if I'm wearing my clothes, I ruin them. Okay, so we're gonna shape it so it was in a sphere, and now I'm just going to shape it down. There's a lot of folds in this, which it's not the best. But you know, I'm an amateur, right? I told you that. Okay, so I'm gonna spread this out. We're gonna do this little number, put it in there, and then we're gonna cover it again with the damp cloth and let it rise for another 30 minutes. So here we go. So when you're proofing bread, which is letting it rise that second time, it can often be really helpful to put it in the microwave. And I wanted a little extra lift in the bread, so I did go ahead and put it in the microwave. So I first heated up a couple cups of water for about 6 minutes in the microwave, and then I got the microwave nice and moist. You can see a lot of that moisture. And then I popped this pan of bread in, but I did not turn the microwave back on. I just let it sit in the humidity. And because of that, look at that. Look how much that has risen. It probably would have risen even higher if this damp towel wasn't pushing it down. So fantastic. Now it's ready for the oven. You can see that I have to clean out my oven, but that's for another day. This is the bread. Can we see it? Oh, I need to clean this so bad. Look at that, guys. It's looking lumpy. That's amateur baking for you. Okay, so now we are ready to remove the bread. Okay, my beautiful friends, we have the loaf. It's not too hot. You can see that where I had the splits in the dough, you get splits. And so if you don't want that, you have to be a little bit more careful when you're kneading it. But this is a good example of amateur bread. Nothing crazy, nothing super beautiful, but trust me, it's going to taste amazing. So before I dig in, I want to quickly show you why this bread turned out so well. So you can see that there is some air bubbles, but not too many. So we got a really good rise. I think that has a lot to do with the second rise we did in the microwave. You can see too that it has that nice shape thanks to the bread pan from my aunt. And you know, it has some good crust, but it's not too dark. You can have a darker crust if that's what you like. Just make sure that you cook it for a little bit longer. Also, it is cooked all the way through, but we have that enriched bread dough, so it's a little bit chewier. So there you have it. We made bread from start to finish. I hope that this was inspiring to you, and you know that if I can do it, so can you. You want to be in the optic? You like it?